Welcome to the screencast for Solving Proportions 2. In this lesson, you're going to learn how to solve proportions. So you should be comfortable with solving multi-step, one-step, two-step equations, and also from our previous screencast, solving proportions. And then in this one, we're going to learn how to solve just a random generic proportion. And the reason that we need this lesson is because in future lessons, we're going to be learning how to write and solve our own proportions. So let's take a look at our first example. Our first example is with the variable in the numerator. And when we're dealing with the variable in the numerator, it's pretty just following along with our basic one-step equation. If we want to isolate the variable, we need to think about what's happening to the variable. And right now we're dividing by 2. How do we undo divide by 2? What we're going to do is multiply by 2. So I just want to give myself some room to work. And what I'm going to do is multiply my left-hand side by 2, because when I multiply 2 and then that's divide by 2, that goes away, and I'm just going to be left with the m plus 10 in the numerator. And remember, with our equation solving basics, what you do to the left-hand side, you do to the right-hand side. So I'm going to have to multiply by 2 on this side also. So as I simplify, that's going to be m plus 10 on my left-hand side, because remember, 2 over 2 is just 1. And on my right-hand side, I can use a calculator to help me simplify. I can know how to multiply a whole number times a fraction. So it's going to be that 2 times 10, which is 20. That's going to be 20 over 9. So my next step is just a basic, solving equations. Right now I'm adding 10. To undo add 10, we subtract 10. So what you do to the left, you do to the right. And again, I'm going to use a scientific calculator, a calculator that deals with fractions, to do this. And so you could use your Desmos calculator, you could use the TI-30XS, whatever calculator you have. And we're going to get m equals negative 70 over 9. So when you take 20 over 9 minus 10, that's negative 79. So again, this is where a graphing calculator, not a graphing calculator, scientific calculator that deals with fractions can come in handy. Our next example is when the variable is in the denominator. And as you recall from our earlier screencast, variables in the denominator are really something that we don't like to see as mathematicians, something that we don't want to work with. So my first job is to get rid of that variable in the denominator. So what I'm going to do is multiply this 9 over n plus 1. I'm going to multiply that by n plus 1. Because that way, what you have multiplied by, that's going to cancel out. We're going to be left with 9. So if I multiply the right-hand side by n plus 1, I have to multiply the left-hand side by n plus 1. And I'm putting that in parentheses just to indicate that I understand a denominator is a group, and another way to show a group is with parentheses. So as I simplify this, on my left-hand side, I've got 3/7 times n plus 1 equals 9. Now, our first reaction might be to distribute. But I actually do not want to distribute, because if I distribute, I'm just going to get more fractions. So that would be 3/7 n plus 3/7, and I just want to avoid fractions in general. So I'm going to utilize this rule. I'm just going to give myself some room to work here. I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of 3/7. And the reciprocal of 3/7 is 7/3. What that does is it kind of gets rid of that fraction for me, because 7/3 times 3/7 is 1. And if I multiply the left-hand side by 7/3, I'm going to multiply the right-hand side by 7/3. And I am just going to be left with n plus 1 equals 21. And here I'm using a calculator, or I'm saying, 7 times 9 is 63. 63 divided by 3 is 21. So I'm just kind of working through my math. So using a calculator with fractions, or understanding how to multiply a fraction times a whole number. So now that I have n plus 1 equals 21, How do I undo add 1? I'm going to subtract 1. What you do to one side, you do to the other. And our final answer would be n equals 20. So just taking like an overarching look, we just need to remember that you never want a variable in the denominator, so that should be the first thing that you take care of. So in this lesson, we showed 2 examples of how you can solve proportions, and that is the end of our screencast.